Okay, so now we're going to talk about polynomials, monomials, binomials, and trinomials. So first we've got to go through, of course, our vocabulary. So a polynomial is a sum of monomials. So that means there's many terms. So on the last one, we were just dealing with single terms. This one's going to have multiple when we go through this. So again, it's many terms. The next one we're going to talk about is a trinomial. So a trinomial, if you remember what tri means, like tricycle, is going to be 3 terms. So it has specifically 3 different terms. Our next one we're going to talk about is binomial. So like trinomial 3, binomial is 2, like bicycles, 2 wheels. So it's going to have 2 terms. So our next one is monomial. So mono means 1. We kind of talked about this in the beginning of the notes. So that means we're going to have 1 term. So we've got trinomial is 3, tricycle, binomial is 1. Binomial is 2, like a bicycle, 2 wheels. One monomial is 1. So mono is 1. Okay, so now that we know the basic terms and what they mean, we're actually going to be simplifying and then determining whether it's a trinomial, binomial, monomial, or a polynomial, meaning many terms. So what we're going to do is we're going to be doing this. So we're going to distribute that 2 in, will be the first thing. Okay, so we have to simplify this down. We see that there's an x squared, an xy, and a y squared. Those are the 3 different terms we're dealing with. So we're going to distribute that 2. So it's going to be negative 4x squared minus 3xy plus 5y squared plus 6x squared minus 6xy minus 10y squared. So now we're going to combine like terms. So we've got x squared, xy's, and y squareds. So first, let's look at our x squared. So we've got a negative 4 and a 6. That means that those 2 are going to be our first to combine. So it's going to be 6 minus 4, and that's going to give us 2x squared. Our next ones that we have are going to be our xy's. So that's a negative 3 and a negative 6. So that's going to be a negative 9xy. Then we have 5y and a negative 10y. That's going to give us negative 5y squared. So that has 3 different terms. X squared, xy, y squared. So that is a trinomial. That is what we're going to do on each different part of these problems. We are going to be looking for and simplifying these and then naming them so we understand the difference. So now we're going to this next one. First thing I want you to do is notice that it's subtraction. So that's really just a little bitty 1 in front of it. So we're going to distribute a negative 1 into each one to make sure we have this correctly. Remember, we're going to distribute and then do like terms, just like solving an equation. So 3x squared plus 6xy minus 7y squared plus x squared minus 5xy plus 2y squared. Because remember, that's a negative 1 that we distributed in. So now we're going to combine our like terms. So we have our x squared first, and we have a 3 and a 1x squared. So that's going to give us 4x squared. Our next one is our xy's, and we have a 6 and a negative 5, so we'll just have an xy. And then we have a negative 7y squared and a 2y squared, which will give us a negative 5y. Again, we have 3 terms there, so we're going to have a trinomial, just the same, because it's got our x squared, our xy, and our y squared. So let's go on to example C. We're going to distribute once again. So we're actually going to distribute the entire thing into it. So that means we're going to have 3xy squared 5 to the 5, so then we're going to multiply big numbers, 15, then you're going to add the exponents, so we're going to have x to the third, y to the third, minus 18, multiply those together, then you got x to the squared and y to the fifth. So on this one, you have 2 terms. That's your x to the third, y to the third, that's a term, and your x squared, y to the fifth, that's its own term. So because you can't separate those, it's a binomial. That is its own separate one, is the x to the third, y to the third. That is one term. Okay, then we're going to distribute. If y'all remember FOIL, we're going to talk about this a little bit. For those of you that remember FOIL, so it's going to be front, which is your F, so it's your x times x, which is going to give me x squared. Your outside, so that's going to be x times my negative 3, so negative 3x. Insides, 8 and x, it's going to give me 8x. And then our last one's 8 and negative 3, which will give me negative 24. So we created an equation with two different parts. This is FOILing. So then we're going to combine like terms. So our like terms, the only thing we see in here are just our plain x's, because x squared doesn't go with anything, so it's by itself. But then we've got negative 3x and 8x. That's going to give us 5x minus 24. And that's going to be a trinomial because we have an x squared, an x, and then a term by itself. So that is a trinomial. Everything's going to stay the same, simple as that. Okay, so for our next example, we have an x plus 4 squared. So that just means it's x plus 4 times x plus 4. So we're actually going to write it out just like that, and we're going to use the FOIL method again so that we can make sure we're doing this correctly. So remember our FOIL, it's going to be fronts, so those are x times x, that's going to be x squared. Then it's going to be our outsides, x times 4 is going to be our 4x. Then we have 4 times x again, so we're going to get another 4x, and then 4 times 4, that's going to give us 16. So then we're going to combine our like terms, and we're going to end up with x squared plus 8x plus 16. And that's going to be another trinomial because, again, it has 3 more terms. So our next one, we're going to FOIL again. So fronts, we get 4x squared. So it's our 2x times our 2x, and it's going to give us 4x squared. Then we're going to do our outside, so 2x times negative 3 is going to give us negative 6x. Then we have our 3 times our 2x, our insides, and that's going to give us positive 6x. And then we have our 3 and our negative 3, which is going to give us a negative 9. So we're going to combine like terms again, just like we've been doing. So if we combine like terms, we have 4x squared by itself. Then we have a negative 6 and a 6. That means it's going to cancel out and just give us 4x squared minus 9, which is a binomial. This means if you have the same equation with just the sign flipped, then all you have to do is the front and the back, because they are going to cancel if they're the same terms in the middle, because they're just going to end up being opposite. So all you have to do is multiply the fronts and multiply the backs. That's the shortcut when you see that they're opposites. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to work through this word problem. So a rectangle has a width represented by 4x plus 5 and a length represented by 3x plus 2. What is the perimeter and what is the area? So first, we're going to do the perimeter. So perimeter is, remember our equation for perimeter is P equals 2L plus 2W. So we have our 4x plus 5, 3x plus 2. So when we do our perimeter, we have to do it just as that. We're going to do 2 times 3x plus 2 plus 2 times 4x plus 5. So then we're going to just distribute. So we're going to put our 2 in. So it's going to give us 6x plus 4 plus 8x plus 10. So when we do that, so our 6x plus 4 plus 8x plus 10. Then we're going to combine like terms for our perimeter. So our perimeter is going to be 14x plus 14 units. Make sure you add the units if they don't tell you whether it's inches, centimeters, or whatever. Okay, so now we're going to go to area. So remember, area of a rectangle is going to be length times width. So it's going to be is 3x plus 2 times 4x plus 2. So we're going to FOIL again. So 3x plus times 4x, 3x times 5, 2 times 4x, and 2 times 5. So we get 12x squared plus 15x plus 8x plus 10. Then we're going to combine like terms. So we'll get a equals 12x squared plus 23x plus 10. Okay, so remember that's our units. You have to put units squared because it's area. Okay, so for our last problem is going to be find the perimeter of isosceles triangle. So if you remember from geometry, isosceles means it has two sides that are the same. That's what our little black dashes are. So if we know that two sides are the same, and we know our little black dashes represent that those sides are equal, that means that our other side is going to be 3x plus 5. So when we're looking for perimeter, all we're going to do is add all the sides together. So that's going to give us 3x plus 5 plus 3x plus 5 plus 3x squared plus 2x minus 1. So on this, we don't have anything to distribute because we don't have parentheses. So we're just going to combine like terms. So we have only one x squared, so that's going to be left by itself. It's going to be 3x squared. Then we have three different ones that have just an x. So those ones are going to be added together. That's going to be our 3x, and our 2x, which will give us 8x. Then we have a 5, 5, and negative 1, which are all like terms as well, which will give us 9. So our area is 3x squared plus 8x plus 9 units.